A simple arrangement. White walls, wooden floor. The chair sits perfectly still in the center. The space remains quiet, a study in light and shadow. The movement of the sun is subtle, almost imperceptible. The room features smooth white walls and a light wooden floor. A light oak chair sits precisely in the center.
The soft midday daylight streams in from the window, illuminating the white walls and the light wooden floor.
The light moves slowly across the floor, an independent element in the composition. The distance between the chair and the light patch remains slightly misjudged. The room is calm, predictable, and complete. The soft midday light moves slowly across the wooden floor, marking the passage of time. The environment offers no suggestion of change or intention, yet the daylight continues its slow, inevitable transit across the floorboards. The rectangular room features uninterrupted matte white walls and light natural wooden floors. The soft daylight enters from the left, highlighting the texture of the wood grain as the afternoon progresses. The room remains still. Midday light casts a soft glow on the wooden floor. The oak chair. The room is simple, defined by white walls and the absence of clutter. There is, in fact, no obvious source of interest here.
The room remains largely unchanged. The light shifts slowly across the floor. A small fly briefly entered the
Stitchert. In this stable and unchallenging environment, the soft midday light moves across the smooth white walls and wooden floor. The space remains neutral and unchanged. Only the illuminated rectangle on the floor shifts its position fractionally, rotating slowly. An empty room, a simple wooden chair. The light shifts subtly, highlighting the textures of the wood and the matte white walls.
A simple wooden chair sits in the center of the room. Daylight moves slowly across the white walls and floor.
The minimalist architecture is illuminated by soft midday daylight from the left. A patch of light slowly shifts across.
The room is quiet now. The light from the window slowly travels across the wooden floor, marking the passage of the afternoon. The space is consistent and easy to overlook. A light oak chair sits precisely at the center, illuminated by soft. The chair stands in the center of the minimalist room. The backrest is slowly becoming thinner, a subtle shift observed in the consistent soft daylight. In this quiet, white room, the simple wooden chair remains still as the soft midday light slowly moves across the floor. The room remains unchanged, yet the light shifts subtly across the wooden floor. A quiet observation of time passing in an empty space. An oak chair sits motionless in the center of the room. Sunlight streams through the window on the left, casting a shifting rectangle of light. The space feels calm and uneventful. A solitary light oak chair rests in the center. Soft daylight. The space between the chair and the window reduces slightly, drawn by the quiet clarity of the midday light on the wooden floor. An empty room, defined only by light and shadow. The chair remains static as the sunlight shifts. The room is minimalist. The light patch on the floor seems slightly closer to the left wall than expected. A rectangular room, softly lit. The wooden chair stands farther from the window than expected. The space is familiar but imprecise.
The space resists quick measurement. A calm observation reveals the walls, while seemingly uniform, possess.
The light oak chair, centered in the frame, begins to tilt forward. The room no longer feels perfectly settled.
The shadow beneath the chair appears slightly detached from its legs. As the light shifts, the visual consistency feels somewhat weakened. In this environment, the expected relationship between cause and effect seems suspended. The light moves.
As the room compresses inward, the chair's legs appear slightly closer together. It is a visual paradox, emphasizing that
this space seems ordinary, yet the surfaces refuse to hold their form. The grain patterns are inconsistent.
The chair's seat appears marginally lower than expected. Spatial certainty continues to erode as the structure begins to warp. The soft midday light shifts across the wooden floor. The room remains still, yet visually unresolved. The room's architecture undergoes a subtle transformation. The window frame thickens slightly, altering the perception of the space within.
Visual agreement is no longer assured.
A rectangular patch of light moves slowly across the wooden floor towards the chair. The spacing between the floorboards appears uncertain. The architecture suggests a specific volume, yet the depth cues remain inconsistent. The chair, a constant. The room resists stable geometry. The white walls undulate subtly, and the left wall leans inward, causing the
Objects no longer feel fully reliable.
As the light patch skews across the floor, the geometry of the space begins to feel unstable. The orientation is subtly lost. Despite the stillness of the camera, the structural integrity of the room is failing. The clear demarcation between the walls, the chair's proportions appear subtly incorrect, and slowly the room no longer confirms expectations. The structure of the room is minimalist, yet the shifting light introduces an anomaly. The perspective subtly warps as the light advances across the floor, but the shadow's response is delayed. Causality in this space appears fundamentally weakened. The light patch moves without a source. The shadows distort, and the room's geometry fails to reconcile, creating a spatial paradox. This space is defined by its simplicity. White walls, a single wooden chair, and the light from the window. The patch of daylight on the floor seems disconnected from the window's angle. The sun moves slowly across the floor, marking the passage of time in this quiet space.
The shadow cast by the oak chair appears faintly separated from the object itself, suggesting a reality.
A rectangular room, softly lit by daylight. A chair stands centered. The window seems marginally farther away. We observe the subtle movement. A slight turn reveals how the form interacts with the evolving light in the empty room. The room remains still. Only the light moves, slowly crossing the floorboards, a quiet progression of time within the space.
Time feels suspended here. The shadows deepen, but the patch of sunlight holds its shape, defying the clock.
The room feels less definite than it did before. The edges of the chair appear slightly softened as the light intensifies. In this specific illumination, the distinct edges of the wooden chair begin to merge with the floorboards. The visual registration becomes unstable. The light patch moves across the wooden floor, marking the passage of time. The chair remains a static element within the shifting geometry of the room. The room is softly lit by daylight. A light oak chair sits centered on the wooden floor. As the patch of light moves, the patch of midday light moves steadily across the floor. Yet the shadow cast by the chair seems reluctant. The room exists outside of sequence. Here, moments do not clearly follow one another. The light simply is. The chair appears slightly less solid. The certainty of its material form begins to thin, slowly dissolving into the ambient light of the room. The room, characterized by its white walls and wooden floor, is softly illuminated. As the daylight shifts, the present moment feels unsteady. The window, though static in space, appears to be flickering through time. The chair remains centered, but its edges seem to lag behind the present moment, creating a faint temporal echo in the space. The space between the objects begins to feel ambiguous. Separation loses clarity as the boundaries blur, merging the chair with the floor and walls.
Initially, the chair rests firmly on the wood floor, but gradually it begins to lift.
The room appears to hesitate. Progress is no longer implied. The chair's presence feels delayed. Perception lags behind observation. The window appears faintly unfamiliar. Recognition feels delayed. The room feels momentarily detached from sequence. Time does not assert direction in this space.
Awareness arrives late.
The room feels disconnected from before and after. Continuity no longer frames the space. The room appears its present without reference. The moment exists without placement.
The chair stands perfectly centered.
A patch of midday sun rests precisely on the floorboards beside it.
The room is still. Only the light moves, shifting slowly across the wooden floor as the day wanes. The chair remains centered. The shifting rectangle of daylight moves slowly across the wooden floor, highlighting the texture of the chair in this minimalist space. We observe the chair. Its proportions are neither correct nor incorrect. In this space, expectation loses relevance. Change no longer signals direction.
A rectangular room with smooth matte white walls. The light oak chair occupies the center. The definition settles into neutrality.
The window appears fully settled in place. The room no longer resists itself. The space is defined by the soft daylight streaming through the window. The light oak chair sits still, its shadow illusions. The rectangular room receives soft daylight. A patch of light rests on the floor near the chair. The boundary between the room is quiet now. The light moves across the floorboards. Order no longer suggests progression.
The chair feels neither present nor absent. Presence stabilizes without emphasis.
The room appears to hold itself. Continuation becomes unnecessary. The window's light feels fully accounted for. Nothing remains unresolved. The room feels sufficient as it is. Evaluation no longer applies. The chair appears exactly where it is. Location stops implying movement. The room offers no discrepancy. Consistency becomes complete. The room does not invite comparison. Difference loses meaning. The environment feels complete, without reference. Context dissolves quietly. In this static environment, the only discernible movement is the slow drift of the midday sun patch across the floorboards.
This space is defined by the light that enters it. As the sun moves, the room itself seems to breathe in the quiet afternoon.
The environment no longer suggests outcome. Finality does not announce itself. The room feels identical, yet the recognition stabilizes as the light gently shifts its position. This scene offers no deviation. Nothing here stands apart from the ordinary. It is a study in consistency and calm observation. This space exists in a state of balance. The daylight casts a rectangular patch on the floor, shifting slowly as
The room appears exactly sufficient. The room is simply there,